Hello and welcome to AssemblyTV studio. My name is Riina Nieminen and I will be hosting Gamedev compostudio today. With me here I have Saku Syngelmä and Aku Mähönen. Welcome.
Happy to be here.
So, what do you think about the entries this year? What are your feelings?
Quite a lot of games with pretty simplistic, basic ideas, but a lot of unique little twists thrown into them to add a bit of variety, and especially a lot of pretty original ideas and quite a few retro games as well, so it's good to see many different types of games here.
Yeah, that's true. There were a lot of different kind of games in this year's entries.
Yeah, I think a lot of them were retro-inspired, and as a retro player, it's not a bad thing, but yeah, I think a lot of references have been coming from other games to most of these entries this year.
And a lot of comedy games this year, and maybe some games that were a little more comedy and not that much gameplay.
Yeah, but I really like the beach ball bears.
Yeah, that's a really good example about it. The video was hilarious and I was laughing, but I don't know, is it so fun to play it?
I would like to test it to see if it's actually fun to play with.
Yeah.
I can sing, you can play.
And can you change the ending? I do not know.
Canon ending.
Okay, so we have picked some entries that we want to go over with. And our first entry is Fin Summer VR. It's the fifth one.
Yeah.
Okay, so why did we choose this one?
I think it's a really fun game, in a sense. It's kind of, well, it reminds me of my summer car. It's inspired, I think, by that, but it's not my summer car. It's more of a Finnish midsummer experience. What, well, not everyone, of course, do, but you can play Mölkky, you can go to sauna, you can drink Jellona.
Yeah.
It's really authentic. It's really nice.
Yeah,
Voice acting especially is just truly realistic and lifelike.
Yeah, I really like that there were two summer cottage game like this year, but this was really like well thought and it actually went pretty far. So it was just not one thing that you can do.
Yeah. I think it builds upon the whole experience. It tries to be more of the feeling of the game, not just like the gameplay of the game itself.
And we were talking that this was one of the few VR games this year, not so many of them.
Yeah, I think it's it was really funny that the survival game, like the isometric survival game, was with the same kind of theme and it brought the same elements. If there wasn't the Fin Summer VR, it would have been a really fun game and probably I would have wanted to see that. But since it was a VR game, like we talked, it's something more authentic. It's you're actually the person going through that experience.
Yeah, that's true. Our second pick is one of the comedy picks. The eighth one, Aamusimulaattori, morning simulator. Let's look a little bit at that one. So, thoughts about this game?
I basically look like the poster boy of the game, but definitely points for accuracy. 100% accurate to how it is in real life, and it's not really a concept that's used in games that a lot, surprisingly, even though it's something majority of Finnish people go through. Well, maybe not majority, but a lot. And it did have, even though it was like a jokey game, it had a surprising amount of variety to the gameplay. Instead of just being a little simple joke, they added all the you can cut down wood, you have different objectives, nice bit of fresh change of pace, and Yeah, again, points for voice acting. Like that we've actually put effort into that.
Yeah, I also think that was awesome.
Yeah, like I think that, like you said, it's like 100% authentic, and you just burn everything. that was just like, you know, it expects like, okay, I'll do it rationally. No, I need to burn everything to keep it warm. Then you go, even after that, you go to forest, you cut more wood. And what I also like, it's like, you know, the gameplay elements were there, but also it brought a little bit of the horror aspect of Inti. When, like, you know, when the Kapiainen like comes there, and you're like, oh god, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, I think actually that was really good part of the game because, yeah, I don't know what's the horror there in real life, but it was really scary when the face just showed in the screen.
Vacation getting cancelled, basically. They should add that in. That should be a good feature.
Yeah, a small detail is like, you know, even if you try to run, you just like get lost and you end up back to the like camp.
We also talked about that this was maybe the only game that had a really specific audience because it was an army game. So maybe it was a different, or it would be a different experience for me than to you because I haven't gone to army.
Yeah, I think it's really different, and I would think that, you know, this kind of game, it just divides the, like there's a stark contrast between the players. Like others probably love it or like really like it, and the others, they just don't get it. Like what's the big deal with that?
If you don't get the context there, it kind of does divide the audience there because you don't really get that much out of it.
Yeah.
You just think, okay, it's a game where you throw fire in, and throw fire. You make a fire and you just walk around Cotwood and you miss majority of the jokes.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't speak Finnish, which is a bummer, but you know.
Yeah, and I think the like worst thing, like the game that this doesn't fit, is to the girlfriends of the people that has done the army. Seriously, like I can say, like based on my friends' experience, it's like, you know, when they like the experience telling part starts, they're like, oh god, I don't want to hear this, and then you have a game that you play to show them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this could be a really good game to show everybody like what's the horror in there, even though you haven't went there, because I think that was really authentic.
Yeah.
So let's go to our third pick, the entry 12, Crisis Wing. So, thoughts about this game?
Really don't have that much to say, except that it's very just visually polished, and gameplay-wise it looks very polished as well. A lot of enemy variety, using different shooting styles, and it pretty much looks like it's something that could be a completely finished game that's sold on something like Steam. It just looks great, to be honest.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same things. Like the amount of polish is really good compared to the other entries. But I think it's because it loans a lot of things from like old arcade shooters, and I could say a number of old games that they are loaning from. Like straight on, like all the things are, I could just pick the games and they're the same thing with different theme, like graphical theme.
Yeah.
So it's a really good game in the sense it's really polished and it works, but it has been seen so many times, so it doesn't have this unique thing. But like with the amount of polish, I would say it's a good game.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that it was really, really beautiful when you see it, and there were so many different types of guns that you can see. Also, I was a little bit confused because there were these little pods that you could pick, and it wasn't enemy, so that was maybe a little bit confusing for me because I thought it's gonna explode or something. But yeah, I also think that it was really, really beautiful game, but not maybe that special from what already have been made.
Yeah, I think the contrast can be seen also from the one with the like the beach ball bear. Like it didn't have the gameplay content, but it was in a sense like it told the story. It was the experience. But in that one, it doesn't tell a new experience or story. It's more about the gameplay and like how well it is done.
It think this game aimed more towards especially towards the retro style, and that's probably why they didn't really make anything that like special, because they wanted to keep it more retro, more classic, because it really feels like one of those older bullet hell type games, at least to me.
Yes, okay. So our fourth pick is the 13th entry, Trauma. Let's look at that one.
This can't be true. Please no.
Okay, compared to the last entry, we all agreed that there were like really unique gameplay stuff in this one.
Yeah, at the start, it seemed pretty basic. It seemed like a basic platformer with like a plot thing at the start, and I was wondering like, okay, is this just like a platformer? Is there anything unique to it? And then when they threw in the death as an actual gameplay mechanic, that one really impressed me, and it was probably the game that impressed me the most out of all of these, just because of that use of that as a mechanic and the way they did it. Also, the change in visual style was surprising but delivered well, and it really made the game stand out.
Yeah, like if you think about the game in like gameplay-wise, it must be like the most diverse one. It has most mechanics that work well together and look like you can see like the puzzle elements in the game. You need to kill yourself, and then you can transfer from one body to another, which was really nice. Also, like, you know, using the light effects. At first, like in old games, you usually have those lights that are just there, but it used as the mechanic, so it's kind of trying, like the same with the graphic style, it tries to kind of surprise you. It makes you think that it's just something, but then it surprises you. And in that sense, it's a really nice puzzle game, and it has like the graphical style and the mechanics itself, like they feel like really well made. But for me, it's like it leaves a little bit of something. Like maybe it's the coherency, or maybe it's the like that it doesn't have that much polish. It leaves something like missing that I wanted to see from the video.
Yeah, I also agree that I really like the maybe new, different kind of thinking of games, because in every game that I have played, if you die, it's like the worst thing that you can do. But in here, you actually have to die. So maybe this could start something new, ways of thinking what is good in games and what's not.
Yeah, I've seen some of those games, but there was a game jam where people used that. Like I think team was Ouroboros, so you need to kill yourself. But this builds upon that. Like, you know, in those games it was just like, okay, kill yourself and jump on top of it. That used that one as well, but you also had some other mechanic that you need to kill yourself in a certain position and then transfer into that body. So it kind of built upon, and it didn't leave too shallow. It was more like, you know, deeper. You needed to think more.
Yes. Also, this was, I think, the second game that used lighting as one of the big elements. There was this another entry. What do you think about that? Is it going to be a new fashion in game industry to use the lighting of the visual lighting in the game?
I think quite a few games have actually used that to create effect as well, and especially this game, I think, did a really good job with using the lighting to add a lot of variety in terms of gameplay and visual style, because it really stood out from the rest. And I think the other game was the Hotline Miami style game, which name I forgot, but that one also used the lighting on it. But that one was more traditional, and this was a more unique way of doing it, and I really liked that they tried something a bit different with it.
Yes. Okay, our last entry is the last entry, 15th, Medical Forces Overdrive. So this was maybe the clearest pick for for us all. So why? What do you think?
I think that it's a really unique game in a sense. It feels like it has this kind of thematic humor and the feeling of Team Hospital. So it should be like, if you have played old simulator games, it has this kind of same kind of feeling. But the twist is that you are actually one person inside the game, inside the hospital, that you run and take the people, and you use physics, which is like, in a normal environment, when you use funny physics, it usually produces good results. And it seems like, really fun mix of things. Like it's a coherent experience. And also like, the small details, like you take the patient and then you just accidentally, or in purpose, you just go and knock out other people.
The entire game just seemed chaotic in a very good way, in a fun way, where they had a very simple basic mechanic of the game where you throw the guys at the door and that's it. But they added so many little fun things around it, like all the other characters you can smack around and make it a bit different and a bit more fun, at least it seems like. And also the edit mode was something that I really was surprised about. I didn't expect them to have that, but that's something that could add a lot of variety to a game like this, because the game is basically just goofing around, and if you can basically build your own level to mess around with, that adds a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, I really liked also the designing part, because you can do it impossible for yourself with the really, really hard design of the room.
Yeah, and I think the game has a lot of potential. If you just take it further, you add something, maybe a story mode, add levels, like some more panic and some situations, like sudden events or something, like certain kind of people come in. I think it would make a really great game.
It was a little bit unclear for me that how do you recognize which door do you throw which patient, but I don't know if you catched how do you recognize those.
I didn't really catch it.
Yeah, I thought that it was just every open door, but...
Yeah, you can throw everything to everywhere. Okay, so these were our picks. So what are your feelings about the whole entries, and is it going to be a tough competition?
Besides the 5 we picked, there were quite a few games that we were quite on the edge on, do we want to pick them or not? And we had our reasons for most of them, but a lot of them were quite even, and I'd say top 8 were all pretty close for different reasons. Like you can't really pick one for just one feature, because something else may have done something better. Something may have been more polished when something else was just more focused on fun. So we had a nice bit of variety in terms of what the games were actually aiming for, instead of, besides just having different gameplay or different visual styles, the goals were also very different, a lot of them, and also the retro aspect was something that I personally enjoy. So it's nice to see a lot of games embrace that. And yeah, I really liked. Majority of the entries were really great, and it was really hard to even pick 5. So.
Yeah, I also think that there were a clear definition, but I would say that there's it's more clear, at least for me, because I really like the retro kind of feel into the games, but I would really feel I really want them to be more unique or to have some kind of twist, because it's assembly. There's always been really nice assembly games, and the best ones that I remember are always having some kind of unique twist, or at least some kind of fun stuff in there. So I would have 3 games maybe that are have that kind of fun factor, that are not just a good game, but have something kind of pilkettä silmäkulmassa, so to speak. And they would be probably Medical Force, Aamusimulaattori, and Finsummer VR.
Yeah, I also think that it's going to be a really tough competition, because there were really, really many good entries, and it was hard to pick just 5 what to show, and we want to show different kind of entries. So I think it's a really good sign for gamers and game industry that there are so many good entries in here.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that there's a lot of person entries. I really like the fact that people like making games so much, even if they don't make it as a job, but more of a hobby. They're willing to spend their hours. They do graphics, they do programming, they do design, and it kind of also reminds the the old Finnish game scene where there were Tapan Kaikki or there were moles or Mind Bombers or something like Liero. So it kind of brings that nice feeling, and that's how we started. So I think that's also where individuals can start their career if they want to, or they can just keep it as a hobby, which is also nice.
What about, was there something missing? Did you wanted to see something more, or wishes for next year?
I'm not sure if I'd say anything was missing, but it could have been nice to see more games use multiplayer elements. Like quite a few were just single-player things, like the VR sauna game would especially benefit from having a co-op thing where you could look around the sauna area with a friend or something. Like that could really help out the game. Or also Crisis Wing is something that could really benefit from having a two-player mode, because a lot of games like that, like basic bullet hells, do have some kind of a co-op element to them, so you can play through the game with a friend, and also adds replay value and a bit of variety to the entire game. So yeah, more co-op stuff, I guess.
Yeah, I also think I'm not sure if it's the missing of multiplayer or co-op, local.
Yeah, I'd say actual multiplayer instead of co-op.
Local multiplayer is always fun. It's also something really Finnish. It was like Slicks and Slide or Rally Sports or some old games. But I think that what was kind of missing, or not missing, but what I noticed is that there wasn't that kind of game that wouldn't be a clear pick. That it wouldn't be okay, this does everything different. I saw a lot of inspiring by current games, but that's something some kind of game that would just jump into your eye and it's okay, this one. I kind of wanted to feel that it would have been it would bring maybe them, maybe a local multiplayer would have been that kind of experience, that it would have been we would have all said okay, it's this one, this is really fun, it has this something. But on the other hand, it's really nice to see that the level is even, so at least we have it kind of depends, but I would have wanted to see that one really big one that just differences from everything else.
Yes. Thank you, Saku and Aku, for being our guest, and thank you for watching Gamedev Compostudio, and tomorrow we're going to have more studios.